Hi everyone, good day. In today's lesson, we will be learning how to deploy a static S3 site to Route 53 while adding in a custom domain. So it's a regular problem that people have. You may have a static site hosted for a test environment, but you don't know how to deploy it to Route 53 and attach a custom domain. So before we begin, I just want to let you know a few things. The domain name we're using was purchased within Route 53. So if you have it purchased using another hosting service like GoDaddy or um, a web hosting ninja, I mean, the process may be slightly different, but it's really around the same thing. So the services we'll be using for this are Amazon S3, AWS CloudFront certificate. Oh, I mean, means that certificate manager and finally Route 53. So let's begin. So our first step, I'll just run you through everything, then we would take it bit by bit. We'll upload the files to S3, our S3 bucket, and we need to make sure when naming our buckets that the names match. So if you have cloudpaddy.com, the S3 bucket name must be cloudpaddy.com. So some people may want to prefer using the www dot subdomain first, but personally, I usually don't do that because most users now forget to put that in. They just go straight to your primary domain name, which is without the www. So I prefer renaming it exactly what with what I purchased on Route 53 on my hosting service. So the next step, I have to enable static site hosting. That's really simple. But what's kind of tricky is setting the necessary permissions. So if you don't put in the necessary permissions, your site won't be available online, and a file showing you the necessary permissions will be added to the link in the description, so be sure to check that out. Then another thing we need to note is we need to work within the North Virginia region. Other regions can work, but for you to use the SSL certificates from Amazon Certificate Manager, you must be within the North Virginia region. That is the US East 1 region. If not, you can't link it to CloudFront. You wouldn't be able to link it. So you must. So it's cool. You just keep everything within the North Virginia region. Maybe later on, support for other regions would come in. So then the next step is the second to the last step is to host a static site, to link it to create a cloud front distribution for a static site. And that's fairly simple. And while doing this, another caveat you need to take note of is do not use the option selected from the drop-down menu. I'll show you how all these things work, but make sure you copy and paste the URLs straight from either your browser or straight from S3. So CloudFront tries to be smart and gives you lots of suggestions, but unfortunately, those suggestions don't work. You must copy and paste it. So the last is link the domain to Route 53 by creating the appropriate DNS record. So with here, you can now create a CNAME with your www extension. So let's continue. Yeah, so let's go dive straight into the practical. So I'll be opening up my S3 bucket. Like you see, I named it with the exact name of my domain name in Route 53. That is cloudpaddy.com. And we have the domain name as cloudpaddy.com too. So I can open it, and I've already uploaded my files here, and you can see the files available. So all you need to do to upload your own static files, you just come here, click it, and click up and click upload to upload your static files. So for properties now, you can go there, and if you scroll down, you will see your bucket hosting with your static site hosting. To enable it, you can click edit, then um, click enable. So if you disable this, it's off. Click enable, it's enabled. And one thing you need to note about enabling static site hosting with S3. So S3 acts like a server. So it gives it, you specify the home page, that's index.html, and also the error page. So usually I advise that you keep the error page and the home page the same if you're deploying a React application, because if people try to visit your site through a link that is not the home page, it will most likely serve them the error page, because React uses client-side routing. So such a link, such a route will not exist on the server. So it will have to hit the index page first before it now routes to the exact page they're looking for. So if you don't put your error page and your index page as the same while deploying a React application, you will most likely have the error 404 from S3 showing that the page doesn't exist. Meanwhile, the route actually does. That's because at the time it's hitting the server, the route doesn't actually exist. It's when it's downloaded to the client side that the route exists. So that's it for here. So the next service I would go, let me just show the permissions quickly. So permissions now, you can see we have our public, our bucket is public. So everyone on the internet can view the contents of our bucket. So we need to have this file here, and I'll just explain it. Version statement is really simple. So the SID means statement ID, and this is a public read get object. So what you want to do is you want to allow all, so the principle is like everything or all users, the action is to get items from this resource. So the resource ARN now is different from mine. Yours will always obviously be different. So you need to make sure you copy the ARN. How you can get your ARN, you come over here and where is the ARN? For this. Or, yeah, see it over in properties. You can copy it here, then you paste it inside here. And make sure that you put the slash star at the ending, because it means all the items in this resource. That's what this slash star means. So it's really, really important. So, but I mean, a template will be added to a link in the video description, so you can have this. All you need to change is your resource ARN there. And also, you need to enable CORS to allow proper access to. So people can make posts, gets, and puts to these resources. So those are the two things you need to specify for this, for it to become public. So we are done with number one. So we're done with uploading the files and making the domain name public. I'm sorry, making the bucket public. So we move over to the next service, which is ACM. So let's go there, Amazon Certificate Manager. So it's showed as Certificate Manager here. As you can see, I'm in the North Virginia region. Okay, so you should be in the North Virginia region. So I would now create or request a new certificate for this. So before I do this, I would like to use a domain verification. So what I will do is I will create a record in Route 53. Since I want to use the domain verification, I need to create a hosted zone for my domain name, in this case, which is CloudPaddy in Route 53. Hosted zones, go over to hosted zones. The view may be a bit different for those that are just setting it up for the first time. Let me create cloudpaddy.com first as a regular record. So nothing attached to the subdomain. So I would create this as a record that's like an alias to an AWS. For now, I will still change it later on, but I'm creating it to an S3 static website endpoint. Then this is in the North Virginia region, US East 1, North Virginia region. So the West S3 endpoint, so you can see it comes up manually or automatically rather. Yeah, if you don't name it, if you don't give it the same name as your domain name, it wouldn't come up and you'll have to start again. So you need to give your S3 website, your S3 bucket, the same name as your cloud, as your Route 53 hosted, cloud hosted zone. So I can create records now. Yes. So very good. I have my A record. I have my A record on my Apex domain name connected to this. All right, so I can now create my CNAME record. So this is www.cloudparty.com, and this is a CNAME record to cloudparty.com. So create records, and it takes a while before it propagates throughout the internet. So you may not see the effect immediately. But the main point of this is in my Route 53 domain, I have two records that I need, cloudparty.com and www.cloudparty.com. So we will be creating certificates tied to these two records. And that is the main purpose for doing this in Route 53 right now. So let's go back to Certificate Manager, request now. Request a public TLS certificate, next fully qualified domain name, that's cloudparty.com. So that's very good. And I can add another name to this certificate, and that's www.cloudparty.com. So I want to use DNS validation. That's why I had to create the DNS records on Route 53. Then we can leave this the same. Then request now. So it's pending validation. So to make sure it's validated, I open this up and click on create records in Route 53, then create records. So successfully created DNS records for Route 53. We have our certificate issued. So we are done with this step. We've gotten our certificate for our domain name, so we can now link it to CloudFront in step number 4. So the next place we go to now is CloudFront. Then we create a distribution. So, so choose origin domain. Like I said, make sure you do not copy and paste. Make sure you do not select from this list your origin domain, because it wouldn't work. You have to copy and paste the S3 bucket endpoint. So I'll go over to properties. I can either copy it here, or I can open it up in the browser and copy it, but let me just copy it from there. Paste, Command V, then press enter. Origin path, we don't need to choose that. We can leave this as default. Viewer protocol policy, we want to redirect HTTP to HTTPS. So if there is any connection that is HTTP, it gets redirected to HTTPS once it hits CloudFront. So caching optimized, this is recommended, but for now I'll disable caching and I'll enable it later on. So if your application still has lots of updates you need to make, I'll recommend you disable caching, because if you make updates with caching enabled, it will take a longer while for the cache to be invalidated, only if you set it manually, for your changes to be live. So you can make a change and it will take like a little while before you see your change live. But if you're sure that this is the final version, you can make it, you can optimize the caching. So for now, I'll disable it. Origin request policy, leave it as default. Response headers, leave that blank too. Then leave this also. So alternate domain name, this is very important. So we need to add the domain names we want to link to this distribution. And those are cloudpaddy.com, and add another one, www.cloudpaddy.com. Very good. So now SSL certificate. If we didn't, if all the names don't match, and if it's not in the North Virginia region, we wouldn't see this option available. So we can link it now and it is correct. So if we generated a certificate here and we didn't use the www form, CloudFront wouldn't be able to link it in. So you can't use this unless you also generated a certificate for it here. So yeah, so the default root object, these can remain as is, then create distribution. Then let's check out our domain. It's still deploying. Well, let's check out what is here. Okay, yeah, it's still deploying, so nothing would show. All right, guys, so our distribution has been deployed and it should be available now on Route 53. So let's check it. What we will do is select our A record that we created initially and linked to S3. Then we can edit the record, change all these, CloudFront distribution, choose distribution. Okay, it's not going. Let me change it to something I know is really wild. That's API gateway. Move it back to CloudFront. Choose distribution. Yes, now it's available. So you see why the names have to match. If the names don't match, this wouldn't come up here. So I can choose this and click save. So yeah, so let's check if our site is live now. Yes, it is live.